Hey, this is Eric Tinkler here with Dr. Philip Payne, and we're here to present you our new podcast, Not Your Forte, a guide to keeping music ed simple. Starting off, we're going to talk about kind of what this podcast is going to be about, what all we're going to cover, introduce ourselves, then we're going to dive in how to start your year off in music education the right way. Dr. Payne?
So, my name is Dr. Philip Payne, and I am in my 10th year teaching music education at Kansas State University. And just a little bit about my background. I grew up in the state of Oklahoma, and I went to Moore High School, which is sandwiched in between Oklahoma City and Norman. And so I grew up there, commonly referred to as Tornado Alley. We've had a few of those throughout our time. So I grew up in Moore, and I went to school for my undergrad at Southwestern Oklahoma State University in Weatherford, Oklahoma, and then did graduate work and got my PhD from the University of Oklahoma in Norman, Oklahoma. And then in between there, I taught for 5 years full-time. Spent 3 years while I was working on my doctorate and part-time doing low brass coordination for several schools in the Moore Public Schools. And then following my PhD, I was director of bands at Rogers State University in Claremore, Oklahoma, for a year before taking this job here at K-State, where I currently am a chair of music education, lead advisor of music ed here at K-State. So I get to work with all those students from the time they are recruited and come to campus as freshmen all the way through graduation. So hopefully be able to share a little bit about how to navigate being a music ed major, because there are a lot of plates that we have to spin through this process. So I'm going to throw it back over to our founder, Mr. Tinkler.
All right, my name is Eric Tinkler. Kind of diving a little bit into myself. Right now I'm a fourth year music education student out of 5. I'll be graduating in spring of 2021. I am from Rose Hill, Kansas, which is a really small town just outside Wichita. I attended Rose Hill schools all my life. Started band as a horn player in 5th grade, and I've just loved it ever since. Decided to come to Kansas State and just try to be like my band director was and create a positive impact through teaching music. Kind of going on about like what this podcast is and how we're envisioning this going is this is a podcast aimed towards helping out music education students, not just here at Kansas State, but wherever you might go. There's a lot of podcasts that I've listened to that are fantastic resources for music educators, but a lot of the perspectives are from people currently teaching, and it's aimed towards more people currently teaching. So this is going to be something where I want to try to reach out with Dr. Payne here and provide a resource to just try to make things a little bit easier for your music ed undergrad, and just have some helpful hints, maybe be a little funny along the way. But yeah, kind of diving into the more logistical sides of the podcast, we're planning on this being a bi-weekly podcast. This first season's going to go along over the course of the fall semester here. So we'll have an episode every 2 weeks up until winter break. So that'll be about like 9 or 10 episodes. And then we're just planning on kind of talking about things that music ed majors have to deal with. It's everything from your coursework, like music theory, passing your oral proficiency, to some professional development help with how to build a resume or how to network, things that will help you go out in the real world and get a job. And in addition, just overall advice. We're very open with topics we're going to discuss. We look forward to hearing from all of our listeners about feedback about what you guys want to hear, because we want this to be aimed towards helping you guys out. And we're just really excited to start off with this.
And I'm passionate about this as well. As lead advisor, I see the struggles that everybody goes through. And so why I hopped on board is because I want to be there to be able to be a resource. I want to send you in the right direction so that you get your questions answered, But at the same time, we're able to create an environment where at times you're going to feel isolated as a music ed major. You're going to feel like you're afraid to ask a question because you're afraid you're the only one that has it. Well, that's totally not the case. And so us being a sounding board for you to throw those questions at us, and then us to have a really frank discussion about what that means and how it impacts your life, and just the stressors of being a music ed major, balancing work life, personal life. You're right, exactly. And so trying to figure out how do we do that? How do we balance our practice schedules and not make our studio professor mad? How do we balance our rehearsal schedule with our ensembles and not make our ensemble directors mad? So
all while not forgetting to get all your homework done for your classes, and if you're working too, that's just a whole nother thing.
Exactly. And so I want to be here to be that voice of, for lack of a better term, that voice of hope, that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and we're going to help you get there. And at points it can feel insurmountable, but in my experience, it's not insurmountable. So I think that's going to be a really great opportunity for us to have those conversations throughout the course of the next semester.
Most definitely. And just we're going to kick off this podcast just starting at the first topic we're going to talk about, and that's starting off your year right. Because sometimes music ed, especially the first 2 weeks, can be just a whirlwind of hecticness and figuring out auditions, figuring out where your courses are, what books you need to get, and everything. So we're just going to provide a few kind of helpful tips into starting off the year right, because a good start is going to lead to a good finish. Now, I've kind of found out through much trial and error, because as a young freshman, it was very hard to get adjusted to things, that one of the most important things is to keep a planner or somehow update your calendar. Because I went by so much my freshman year of oh wait, that's happening today. There's a concert I need to go to today. Oh, well, I scheduled this as well. And I find, especially with the younger students, fellow classmates, that's one of the biggest pitfalls they go into, is they get buried with everything in which they're involved with, because they're not planning out correctly.
And really what you also have to keep in mind is that the professors don't necessarily always talk to each other when they're talking about due dates. So understanding as you go through this process, you'll find out that early on due dates may not be overly hectic, but as you go along in the program and you're a junior, you're a senior, and now you've got these capstone projects that begin to be stacked upon each other, that the ends of semesters can become very, very involved. And so you've got end of the semester concerts, you've got term papers, you've got projects, you've got forms that you got to fill out for whether it's your student internship or student teaching, and having to navigate all of that. I agree with Eric, it's critical to have a planner. Now, the additional piece of advice that I would give there is know yourself. Because we have students that are very kinesthetic, and so writing it down in a planner is much more effective than keeping it electronically. Mm-hmm. We have some that are really digitally advanced, and so they keep everything electronic and it sends them reminders. But you have to know how you best operate. And so understanding that if I need a written calendar, then I'm going to keep that planner and I'm going to keep it with me at all times so that I can always have a reminder of what's going on. If it's electronic, and for me now, it's even gotten to where my phone and my computer talk with my watch. So at any given point, if I lose my phone somewhere, I leave it in my office, I'm still going to get the reminders of what's coming up meeting-wise up on my watch, because it's also connected to my email. So many of you will have school emails. A lot of those emails will interact well with your calendars. So even if you want a hard copy, I would still say make it electronic. if you are primarily electronic, do yourself a favor and make out a to-do list for the day.
I always do a little bit of both.
Exactly, because you never know when something isn't going to work correctly. Now, the other thing that I would do is I would sit down with all of your syllabi.
Yes.
And
syllabus week is not a time just to sit down in class, play on your phone or whatever. Syllabus week is the time to start planning your semester.
Exactly. And so you look at the big projects and write those due dates in first, and then work your way backward and start saying, okay, I know, and again, this comes back to knowing yourself, how you work, and even if you know you're a procrastinator, set it up in small chunks. So that you might say, okay, we've got a research paper coming up.
Especially anyone who's in a music history course or anything like that. I know our music history capstone course, History 3, we have a big paper that's due at the end of the semester. It's not something you can start the night before.
Exactly. And so if you know that it takes you a while to write and you get writer's block, go through the process of writing in time for, okay, I'm going to do research here. Set smaller goals, because if you focus on that end goal, it's going to be very, very difficult. So part of the planner is not just putting the due dates, but it's actually planning out what you're going to do and when. And you would expect me to really say, carve out practice time, carve out certain times for your classes. And Eric mentioned a little bit of homework. I'm going to say one of the most important things for you to carve out are going to be two things. A time to eat during the middle of the day, and some time where you can disconnect and decompress outside of the music building. Those both will keep you refreshed and moving forward with good momentum throughout the semester, and it will keep you from burning out. If you don't take that time to eat and take care of yourself, if you don't take that time to disconnect and get away from the music building, it's going to be a difficult proposition to keep that energy maintained all the way throughout a 15-week semester and finals.
And there's a lot of people who I'm good friends with, especially as you start getting to your third, fourth year, that I've seen experience this burnout, and this is still just their undergrad and thing, and these are people wanting to be music teachers, and it's something they chose because they loved it. So I found out for me, I can get overwhelmed fairly easily because I'm very much a yes person. I love to get involved in everything I can. As Dr. Payne has said multiple times, know yourself. Not everyone can be constantly go all the time, and if you feel like you need a break, talk with your professors. I know for a fact all the music professors here at Kansas State are going to be very helpful and going to treat you really well and trying to do what's best for you. And I know in general music faculty around the country or any music teacher is incredibly kind.
And so when we're talking about planning, and I think this gets to one of our next topics, it's about setting goals. It's about saying, okay, what do I want to accomplish this semester? And then don't think about graduating. Graduating is kind of an end result, but that's not your goal for the semester. So think about, what do you want to accomplish that semester in terms of musicianship? What do you want to accomplish in terms of studio? What do you want to accomplish in terms of individual practice? Do you want to learn a new instrument? Do you want to try a new ensemble? Set that up, but also remember, it's not just your musical and educational goals, it's your personal goals.
Yeah.
It's all of that. And the reason you have to set those goals is you're going to have to plan time for that. And the hardest part about this is because inherently as musicians, we love to say yes. As Eric just said, it's very hard to say no. So we've got to figure out how can we set our limits. And, honestly, if somebody asks if you can do something, if you have a set of goals, if you set yourself 5 or 6 goals that you want to get or achieve that semester, if being a part of that group or that ensemble doesn't help you achieve that goal, it's okay to say no.
They aren't going to hate you for it.
No, and they'll come back the next semester and they're like, "Are you interested this semester?" And it might work out to where, yes, you would love to be a part of it. But again, it comes down to you have to set those goals and work your way back. It's about setting that destination. Where do you want to be at the end of the semester? And plan out your path.
Yeah, and when it comes to setting goals, a huge help is just having a friend who you can talk to about those goals. I know previous semesters I've always had an accountability partner that I met with on a regular basis to be like, hey, these are my goals and stuff, and like, how are you doing on your goals? And he'd check up on me. So no, you don't have to do it yourself. You have your studio professor, you have your family, you have your friends, people who you can talk to, who you can trust to just talk through this. And it's okay if you don't hit all your goals all the time. That's a very high, impossible task to always do. But it's okay.
And so but I think that's a life lesson too, right? So you have these goals, and let's say you don't hit all of them. Well, now you know yourself a little bit better. So you've met a goal in the fact that you didn't meet that goal. So now you say, okay, I need to set these in smaller chunks. And then let's say you get to November and you've already hit all of your goals. That means you didn't push yourself far enough. So all of this is a learning process. But if we go through it with only saying graduation is the only goal that we have, we're missing out on so much more. And so I think the biggest thing that I always like to advocate, it's the setting of the goals, and it's putting them into a planner and then planning out. I use a vacation metaphor, and I use this a lot for teaching, but it works perfectly for goal setting as well. If I said, I'm going to go to Colorado, well, what does that even mean? I mean, once I'm in the state of Colorado, there's a ton for me to do, right? I can go to Colorado Springs. I can visit the Air Force Academy. I can go to Garden of the Gods. Or I can go to Boulder and I can see the University of Colorado. Or if I can go to Fort Collins, which, by the way, is a beautiful city.
Oh, beautiful. Love it.
And so, or I could go further out. I could go to Breckenridge, Frisco, Grand Junction. I mean, all of those. I've got all of these options. I could go to Leadville. I'm not going to run the 100-mile race, but I could go to Leadville. I mean, it's a cool town, but all of those are going to require a certain set of goals. And so it might be, all right, my goal is I want to go ride the Sky Coaster on the rim of the Royal Gorge. Okay, so now I've got to figure out a way to get to the Royal Gorge. And how am I going to get there? Well, I'm not going to say, well, I'm just going to go to the Royal Gorge. I have to plan the route. I have to figure out how I'm going to get there, where I'm going to stay, how I'm going to, when I'm going to eat, where I'm going to stop along the way to fill up with gas. There's so many different things smaller steps that I have to plan out. It's the same way with each semester. It's the same way with how you operate and go through getting a degree. And so I think
getting that degree is that end point. It's not like Dr. Payne's mentioned. It's not necessarily a goal. It's the end point. And there's so many people have told me it's all about the in between is what's really going to make an impact and what's really going to matter with how things are rolling.
Absolutely.
Going on, we kind of talked about this a little bit, but within a semester, always be taking care of yourself. And no matter what university you're at, there's going to be tons of resources to help you do that. I know the first thing is, Dr. Payne mentioned this, is you need to eat. There's so many people who will go throughout the day who don't eat a meal. And that's not very great for you. And it doesn't help your learning, and it doesn't help your mental state when you haven't eaten.
Absolutely, and we've all had that experience where our stomach growls in the middle of class. What ends up happening is you end up getting hungry and dehydrating, and you can't think straight. You're not going to retain any of that information that you're experiencing if you don't keep up a healthy lifestyle. So one of the things that I would say there is carry snacks. Put them carry snacks in your locker. Carry Tupperware of protein rich. I mean, even like almonds or something that
even if it's just something small like a granola bar, just something to put in your system.
Absolutely, and carry a water bottle around with you. I mean, the more that you can advocate for that physical health, it's going to be so much better. The other thing that I would say is, as a college student, you're going to have access to all of the physical equipment. So here on our campus here at Kansas State, it's just called the Rec Center, and so you can go there. You have access to free weights, to lifting machines,
to classes, even.
Yeah, you can take classes. You can take yoga. You can take spin. You can take. There's CrossFit. There's so many different options that you have. Don't be afraid just because we're music majors.
I mean, most of the time you're already paying for it anyways too with your tuition, so you might as well use some of those.
Absolutely, use it, and you would not believe the amount of networking that you will make outside of, because all too often we become very clustered at the university level, to where we only interact with the people within our building. And as musicians, we're notorious because we're here practicing. We're in rehearsals all the time with the same people, that it's very difficult to reach out. And often the music school is not always right smack dab in the middle of campus. You know, it's on the edge of campus, so it's harder to get more connected. But by going in and being a part of rec services, or doing some classes through the union, those are going to be ways to get in touch with people across the university, and you're going to create networking opportunities that you just don't know how that's going to pay dividends in the end.
And to me, it's always great having friends outside of music. So it just creates a new opportunity to talk about something, whether it's just what their major is. I find it so fun to talk to engineering majors and what their day-to-day looks like, their problems or the fun they have, or just having, like, I like having buddies who I just like to talk about sports with. That's a big thing I like to talk about, and it's fun to get outside of music sometimes.
And don't ignore sickness.
Yes.
If you don't feel well, know where your health center is on campus. You know that you can go seek help for that. Don't wait until it gets so bad that you end up missing class.
And I really understand how we never want to miss a rehearsal as musicians. But if you're sick, you need to reach out to your director, reach out or go to your health center, and get better. Because if you don't, it's just going to keep getting worse until you don't have a choice anymore, and you're going to be at the health center whether you want to or not.
Right, and a lot of times we think we know what's wrong with us, but sometimes we don't. My first year of working on my PhD, I just kept taking antacids because I thought I had an upset stomach. Turns out my appendix had burst. And now all of a sudden, because the symptoms had been going on for almost 2 months, and I just thought that I was just eating bad. Well, turns out I had a burst appendix, and at that point I had no choice. I was going to have to miss class. So, we can always tell when we're not feeling normal. If it's allergies, you're fine. But when you feel that it's coming on, and you, again, this comes back to knowing yourself.
You know yourself better than anyone else does.
Exactly. And so if you feel like it's going to progress something to something stronger, mine always is, I know about once or twice a year I'm going to get bronchitis really badly.
Honestly, I'm the exact same way, actually. Once, twice a year, usually around like October or in February, it just hits me.
And so if you feel that coming on, it's okay to go see the doctor and say, all right, I know this is going to happen. I feel it coming on. And most of the time, they're going to work with you on that. So, be, instead of being reactive, be proactive with your physical health, because it's much easier to catch things on the front end and stay healthy than it is to try and be reactive, because then that's when you miss rehearsal, that's when you miss class, and that's where the snowball effect happens, because then you miss a class, you miss important notes, and then all of a sudden those notes turn into missing several questions on a test, which means now you fail a quiz, which now
we're all feeling really stressed out here. Even just talking about it is just
and so you want to avoid the stress, right? You avoid the stress by being proactive rather than reactive, especially when it comes to physical health.
And speaking about stress, mental health is such a real thing that I know here at Kansas State we do we work hard towards recognizing that. And talking about just trying to reduce stress is, one, keeping your physical health up, like we mentioned, and two, just everything we talked about, planning out your semester, trying to get your homework done on a timely fashion.
So I did a study 2 years ago, and I'm going to replicate it this year, where I asked music ed majors. I said, what are your biggest stressors? And the largest stressor was lack of time. And the second one, or the third one, was overcommitment. So right there, we know where the stressors are happening, right? So try not to overcommit, okay? Keep track of that. Know yourself, know your limits, and understand that you have to carve out time for you.
Yeah, it's so important to have you time. I try to be very intentional about every day of having an hour where I can go to the student union and read a book I like, or just kind of relaxing a little bit, chilling, or going out to hike or enjoy outside. That's something I like to do. Just find something you like to do and do it.
And find something outside of music.
Yes.
Because being able to get out of the building, being able to get out of your head, being able to get out of that music making mode is also very helpful. It's very refreshing. It does help with stress levels. Now, one of the things that I would say also is this comes back to knowing yourself. Part of that study was that 73% of music education majors provided us indicators that they were showing signs of depression. 79% showed signs of anxiety. So one of the things that we have to look at there, and now to give you a little background, this was 1,300 music ed majors across all 50 states. So this isn't just one localized study. Mm-hmm. This is a national study that we conducted, and of those, there were some that, had they gone and sought treatment, they would have been diagnosed. Or I can't say that 100%. What I can tell you is that the indicators were there that they should be seeking help. And so don't be afraid. If you feel those pings of depression or anxiety, there are resources.
So many resources available at any campus.
Absolutely. That is a major push across all universities. Is there are, whether it's a counseling center, whether it's student services, they are there to help you. That is why they get paid to be there every day. So go talk to them.
It takes you having to reach out to them, though. It's okay to admit things aren't 100% okay. I know that's something I've struggled with. Is just I want to keep rolling and stuff like that. Keep going with rehearsals, practice schedule, everything. But when I need to slow down, that's a call I need to know when I have to make that. So if you feel like you need help, reach out. There's no issue with ever doing that.
And nobody. One of the biggest fears. In the literature, what they tell us, one of the biggest fears is that that seeking help or talking to somebody is that other people will look differently upon you. And the converse, though, is that when people are surveyed, do you think differently about somebody that's seeking help? And they say no. And so there's this
there's
internal
a weird
battle.
Stigma, kind of.
Right. So there's this stigma and there's the internal battle that we have with asking for help. And then the reality is those resources there, use those resources, and they're going to help you. And don't be afraid to talk to your studio professor.
I've had many therapy sessions with in my lesson before. Your studio professors are going to take a deep care about you throughout your years in your undergrad, just because you're their student.
Mm-hmm. And the other thing is there is a lot of stress. We know as professors, especially in music education, we understand that it's stressful. We understand that
they went through it.
Right. We understand that you're under these pressures and these stressors. So communicate with us. We will find the help for you. Again, I can't overstate the importance of maintaining physical and mental health through this process. When we talked with the students, we asked them to rate their physical, their mental, and their academic health. Their academic health rated the highest. They said, I think the final average was like 8.1 out of 10 across 1,300 responses. Well, that's really high. I mean, that's really pushing the top end. The average GPA of music ed majors nationwide, 3.55. Okay, so they're doing really well. The problem is their physical health rated, I think it was like, I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but it was like 6 out of 10. And mental health was like 5 out of 10.
Oh, so both not very good.
Exactly. So they were like pulling down towards the bottom. And so it's like, no, those need to be up there with academic health. You have to take care of yourself. You can't burn the candle at both ends.
Yep.
And maintain a healthy lifestyle. And one of the things that I want to look into is how is this carrying over into the profession? You know, because one day every one of us are going to be music educators. Well, at that point, if we are all going into the profession, we want to make sure that we're going to have the same support.
Yeah, we know how to take care of ourselves.
We know how to take care of ourselves, because if we don't, we become another statistic and we leave the profession in the first 5 years, which right now is telling us 1 out of every 2 will leave their profession within the first 5 years. So we want to be able to work on that and make sure that this is a lasting and an enjoyable profession. But the only way we can do that is to focus on our mental and physical health.
Yeah, and we've talked a lot about kind of things you can do to kind of keep that in check. I find one of the super fun things is a healthy amount of involvement. I know plenty of universities have tons and tons of opportunities to get yourself involved and to meet new people. I know there's music fraternities and sororities. There's Phi Mu Alpha, Kappa Kappa Psi, Tau Beta Sigma, Sigma Alpha Iota, and tons of other groups at different universities that you can get involved in. I've been involved with Phi Mu Alpha and Kappa Kappa Psi, and both to me have just been a great benefit. Just to, one, having fun, and two, these are like really nationally known organizations that are going to look great on any resume.
Absolutely, and I would say some of you will also have interactions with Mu Phi Epsilon, which is another music fraternity. And for me, I was a member of Phi Mu Alpha Symphonia, and I was at Tau Beta Sigma. So, and each one of them, they served specific purposes for me. Phi Mu Alpha Symphonia, those are some of my best friends.
Some of my closest friends
Some of my closest friends, and we will still get together and hang out at the band camps that we used to work. And so we'll come back as faculty members, and we will have great conversations, and it's almost as if no time has lapsed in between. So you're developing lifelong connections. With Tau Beta Sigma, it's the same way. The function of the group was different. For Tau Beta Sigma, it was to serve the band program. And so everything we did was in service to the band, and we built bonds through the service to the band.
I know there are plenty of band programs who couldn't operate without their Kappa Kappa Psi or Tau Beta Sigma chapter.
Absolutely. One of the other ways that you can get involved is through professional organizations. NAFME Collegiate is huge. The National Association for Music Education is the primary lobbying force for music education on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. So being a part of that will allow you to see at the ground level all of the work that's being done on your behalf as a future music educator, and I think that's really important. I would say then from there you can do your state level of Bandmasters Association for band members, ACDA, or the state level of ACDA, which is the Choral Directors Association, or ASTA, the String Teachers Association. Find the ones that will provide you the most professional benefits, and go to their conferences. Get connected. Be on student leadership. Find ways that you can continue to contribute back to your profession. Now, we're saying get involved. What we're not saying is overcommit. Yeah. So again, this comes down to
you know yourself.
You have to know yourself. And if you want to be involved with these groups, if you want to serve on an executive committee, a national executive committee for or if you want to serve as province collegiate representative for Phi Alpha Sinfonia, then you're going to have to give something up. It's a balance. So again, you have to learn how to balance and this goes back to the very first thing we talked about, and that's setting goals. You have to set your goals for that semester, that year, and if being a part of a specific brass quintet or a a cappella vocal ensemble is not going to help you get to be on National Executive Council for one of those programs, maybe you should say no to that this semester and really focus your sights on that rather than splitting your time so many ways that you end up stressing out and then work suffers across the board as opposed to helping you make tangible progress towards your goals.
Really greatly put. I think we're kind of running out of time for our episode here, so we're going to go ahead. We're going to wrap up. This has just been an incredibly fun experience starting out episode 1. I'm sure Dr. Payne would agree.
Absolutely. It's fun. I could talk hours about this stuff. As lead advisor, I can
this time just flies.
Absolutely.
And then kind of going on, the next episode will not come out this next week, but it'll come out 2 weeks from now. Episodes will always come out on Fridays. So be on the lookout for that. I think next week we're going to dive into music theory and how music theory is actually kind of fun. I know, I'm sure you guys are groaning as you're listening to this, but trust me on this one. Music theory is pretty important. If you guys want, go ahead and submit questions, submit suggestions, feedback, anything to our email. Our email is notyourfortepodcast@gmail.com. So that's notyourfortepodcast@gmail.com. And then finally, we're going to have a little contest for our intro music. Whatever we're using right now is just going to be a fill-in. You guys have 4 weeks to work on submitting your own original composition. About like 15 to 20 seconds is what we're looking for using as an intro and an outro. And the winner of this will be able to get a $20 Chick-fil-A gift card. Once again, just submit that to our email. We'd like to have a recording sent. You can do that via YouTube link, via Dropbox, whatever works best for you.
We'd love for you to share, retweet, share it on Facebook, share it on Instagram. We would love to get the word out about this podcast because we really think it can be helpful to a wide audience. So again, help us spread the word and tweet us your questions, email us your questions. We will.
This is going to be designed for you and for all the listeners because you guys are going to be what makes this work. All right.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, everyone have a good one. Let's survive the next couple weeks.
Enjoy the beginning of the semester, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.